Welcome to this new segment of the Leadership Dialogue on Asian Sentiment 2023. This one is particularly close to my heart. We talk about ESG and sustainability. So, most nations across Asia have set net zero targets for 2030, 2050, 2070. Some of this is starting to slowly percolate downstream to enterprises. Our research at Ecosystem shows that 70% enterprises across Asia have a focus on sustainability. Yet, in terms of actually having a robust strategy and roadmap, that number shrinks down to about a quarter of them, right? So the first question I have, and this probably, I'll pose this to you first, Ahmed, since you touched on your climate fund. The first step of a long-term strategy is defining the goals. And these goals have to align with the organization's overall objectives and goals. And my question to you would be, what is going to encourage organizations to start to put that focus on the planet and really start to drive that purpose economy, and because it has so many ramifications?
Your question is complex and multidimensional. So I think I'd be very challenged to give you a very short, crisp answer on what's being done and why. Like, why is it being done? I just think that, to the point I made a bit earlier, I think the citizens of the world today are demanding a better planet for the future. I think let's start there, right? Secondly, there's a lot more ownership that investors are having. There's investor activism. You may have seen the latest news article yesterday. One of the largest sovereign funds, which is the Norwegian sovereign fund, has essentially said that if any of our portfolio companies do not put up an ESG goal, we will vote as a shareholder against the board, right? A lot of the private equities are moving away from companies that do not support a sustainable world. So I think the world is becoming a lot more acknowledging the fact that we need a world that is more green, that is good for the planet, and therefore companies are taking more pledges. I mean, we took the 1 billion pledge on investment, but we also have our own goals. We have a 2030 goal for neutrality. We have a 2030 goal for clean water. We will replenish as much water as we use. We have a 2030 goal for waste, but we have one of the most ambitious goals that I think any company has, and that goal is by 2050, we will take away all carbon that we have ever emitted in our life.
I think that's, sorry.
No, it's just acknowledging it's ambitious, and it's pretty heartwarming to see this sort of collective consciousness that we referenced about the employees wanting to be part of, but equally sort of extending itself to shareholders starting to say, taking notice of it. So I think it's sort of going through the entire spectrum of consciousness, which is very positive.
It's fascinating, isn't it? There's regulatory pressures, and everyone thinks about the impact being on the high emitters, but eventually financial services organizations, and you talked about the private equity funds, the financial institutions, they are going to come down hard because they're going to get penalized. So everyone has to prep for it. And yet what you're talking about, Paddy, is the bottom-up effect where the next generation of talent that's going to come in, or even consumers, will want to align with those values, right? So are you seeing a big shift in organizations to start to actually gear up for the next generation of talent that's coming in?
Absolutely. So net zero is something that employees are wanting to identify themselves with in my current organization. So there is, planting a tree when you are contributing to a certain amount of the pledge that you've signed up for in terms of sustainability. And the plant has your name, and you have a little picture that comes to you saying that, this is a plant in your name, and it just starts to feel very personal. So it's, I think the shift that's happening is personalizing the sustainability agenda so that it starts to feel more meaningful at an individual level. So I think that's a little bit of a journey that will help keep that momentum going.
Oh, thank you. And Luca, just on sustainability, sustainability initiatives are effectively data initiatives, right? And love to get your thoughts on what's the sort of considerations enterprises need to have with respect to data, but also the digital engineering or infrastructure that they need.
Well, when it comes to sustainability, I think it's almost difficult to walk the talk because sustainability today is still characterized by, is still very unstructured. Is still based on personal judgment. I think you mentioned data. I think there is a lack of standard, lack of automation in the way we collect the data and analyze the data. I think there is a lack of structured taxonomy and alignment to the SDG goals. There was a paper, there was a fascinating and troubling MIT paper published a couple of years ago from a researcher at MIT. But I think the point was of this paper, they look at ESG ratings from the 6 largest agencies providing ratings, the most reputable, and they found absolutely uncorrelation between results. You could either be a good company or a bad company, depending on which agencies was rating you. And they find what? It was based on the analyst. The analyst was the only factor driving consistency across the ratings that these agencies were supplying. So I think there is a huge effort that needs to be made in terms of creating the proper framework and the proper standard for companies to operate with. Because whatever is the ambition and the positive ambition that you might have, you really need to have standards. Like we have financial standards to measure our balance sheet. So I think we need to move in this direction. I think a company needs to make a very deliberate effort in terms of making ESG goals part of their data strategy. Which data I want to collect, which data I need to analyze, and then making decision based on the insights. I think as companies are relooking at their supply chain based on multiple factors, including geopolitical risk, I think every company needs to make a very deliberate effort in terms of creating very transparent supply chain where data are collected and disseminated openly to the relevant bodies, to the relevant agencies. And only this we can really measure the progress that we are making. Hamid was making a point in terms of the world people wants it. I want to add one more point. Not only they want it, but they are eager to pay for it. 90% of the consumers in Asia are willing to pay more for sustainable products, but they are held back because of lack of visibility and transparency on, is it really sustainable? Tell me more about it. So I think technology and data can really play a huge role in terms of enabling these transparencies and this visibility.
So Luca did a great commercial for Microsoft in the last few minutes, actually, on 2 dimensions.
You pay
One,
later.
You're a great partner.
We're a great partner too. One was this aspect of what is the measurement structure? So what is the Sarbanes-Oxley equivalent, right?
Yep.
There is no Sarbanes-Oxley equivalent in supply chain accounting, ESG accounting. So we actually are part of a huge forum called Carbon Call. And the idea is to get the big accounting firms together, companies like us, and create a platform that helps create accounting structures for the ESG. And the second is we've launched our sustainability cloud, Luca, which I'd love to talk to you about later, which is helping measure, helping customers capture data, understand data, and then report data.
Oh. Any last closing words from you, Paddy?
I think it's all a step in the right direction, as it seems. The asks of individuals is starting to feel more comprehensive and not seeming to be more intended at quick gratification, as we heard maybe up until even 2 years back. So I think there is a significant positive shift there. Equally, the sort of the consumer ask, the shareholders, and the way there are opportunities to legitimize the way in which the sustainability can be tracked. So I think it's all a step in the right direction towards our cause. So.
No, wonderful. On that note, I would say, we not only step into a great 2023, but beyond, with the values that all three of you have emphasized. But I do want to really thank you for taking the time. Been in conversation with Ahmed Mazhari, President for Microsoft Asia, Paddy Ayer, Global People and Talent Leader, and Luca Destefanis, the CMO for Kyndryl Asia Pacific. I wish you all a wonderful 2023 ahead, full of success, great health for yourselves, for your families, and for your teams. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.